This is for 9.2 statistics, two mean for independent samples. The first two questions is asking us is the following involve independent samples or not. The reason why you need to know this is because in 9.2 we are doing what we call as independent samples. In 9.3 we will study as a matched pair or dependent samples. So a lot of students get these two confused, and then if they get these two confused, then they do a different type of test, and then they will get it wrong. So for example, in this case, on question 1, it tested the effectiveness of Atkins diets. 36 people are randomly selected before and after the weight is been the diet for 6 months. So if these two samples that is before and after weights, so they collect the data before and after the weights. So is this an independent samples or this is a dependent samples? This is actually is a dependent samples, or sometimes we call it as a matched pair. The reason why we say that this is a dependent or independent samples is because that any data that you get for before and after is always depending samples. That means that it depends that if your weight changes or your test score changes. Some of you think about test score before and after you go for tuition class. So that's the reason why that for this case it is depending samples. That means these two samples are dependent each other. Question 2, annual incomes are obtained from a random sample of 1,200 residents in Alaska and 1,200 residents in Hawaii. This is going to be independent samples. The reason why this is an independent samples is because that a person cannot be in Hawaii and Alaska at the same time. That means that a person can be either in Hawaii or the person can only be in Alaska, a resident of Alaska, so they cannot be in both residency. So that's the reason why that this is independent samples. So do not forget that if you want to do question like number 1, you have to do 9.3. If you want to do question number 2, you will be looking at 9.2, which is in this section.